So welcome everyone to another episode of the Uncast Show. And a good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world. But at the moment it's definitely a good morning for Stefano Partida, who's our next guest. It's 5 AM for him, and he's just messaged me to say that he managed to wake up without an alarm. So I'm really grateful for him getting up so early to get on the podcast. So let's not keep him waiting. So without further ado, let's meet our guest, Stefano Partida from SPXLabs. So good morning, Stefano. Thank you very much for joining us. So you managed to get up okay this morning then in the end without your alarm?
I did. It's funny because like I set an alarm last night, but it was apparently only on weekdays instead of just, today or the next day or whatever. And obviously it's the weekend, so my alarm didn't go off.
I know you had to get up very early this morning at 5 AM. So, I really appreciate you getting up so early.
Glad to be here. Glad to be up. I got some coffee. Good to go.
Yeah, I got my coffee here, but it's a little bit later. But I did actually get the times wrong. I thought 5 AM was 9 AM here. So I got up a few hours earlier, about 6, to kind of prepare. And and I didn't have to. Hours. So, yeah, so you're in Huntsville, Alabama, yeah?
That's right.
So is that the city where it's kind of famous for rocketry, kind of like the Saturn V rocket, that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. We're known as Rocket City.
Yeah.
We have like tons of rockets around here. I think they have 2 Saturn Vs actually, one laying on its side and one standing straight up.
Ah, nice. I've just been watching recently a show For All of Mankind, which is kind of an alternate history program about the Apollo program, and Where You Live actually got me thinking about that show.
Yeah, it's on Apple TV Plus, right?
Yeah. So, what have you been watching lately? Anything that I should know about?
Well, the last thing I watched was The Last of Us, and of course the new episode's tomorrow.
Yeah, and so I've actually got my Last of Us cup here as well.
Nice, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's a pretty good show. I've been enjoying that, and also 1923. Really have you watched that at all?
1923 now. I don't think I've even heard of it.
It's a kind of Western. It's a spin-off of Yellowstone and 1883. It's got Harrison Ford in it. Okay. It's a pretty good show.
I've heard of Yellowstone, but I haven't watched that either.
No, I haven't watched Yellowstone, but I've seen the kind of older two. So, yeah, definitely worth a watch. So gaming-wise, what are you playing at the moment? I've seen on your channel you've been doing a bit of Dead Spacing, yeah?
Yeah, just finished up Dead Space, and then played a little Starship Troopers on stream the other day. And then I'm planning on getting back into Tarkov anytime here soon, but I haven't really given Tarkov any time.
Right, I haven't heard of that one, actually.
Yeah, Escape from Tarkov.
I've been playing a little bit of Titanfall too, but I haven't had a lot of time for gaming. Been doing that on the Steamdeck. I actually bought it to sell on, last summer, thinking, I'm going to sell it on, make some money, but it was so great I couldn't. It was like, really like it.
Yeah, I'm waiting to buy a Steam Deck too. Like, the first version of any technology is usually pretty good, and the Steam Deck looks amazing for their first go, but I want to just hold off a little bit before I buy one. Hopefully for their second version, because the second version should be absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hopefully.
I keep meaning to try and plug a USB stick into the Steam Deck and see if I can boot Unraid on it, but
I'm sure you could.
But yeah,
It'd make for an interesting video. And you can have parity, and because it takes 2 drives, right? So you could have parity and data.
Yeah, I was thinking of just plugging a USB hub in with a couple of maybe NVMe drives plugged in or something like that. I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah, a stupid project, but
well, it's not that stupid. It's awesome.
Anyway, for those watching who don't know you, Stefano, tell me a little bit about yourself and what SPXLabs is all about.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Stefano Partida. Obviously, I'm the creator behind SPXLabs. For a day job, I'm a Red Hat system administrator. So basically live, breathe Linux every day. And then, of course, the channel itself was really created or started off as a gaming channel. And that's where I was. And I was going to kind of use it to self-market in a weird way. And then ended up stopped doing that. And a long time ago, back in 2014, 2015, my good friend Michael was like, hey man, you should just continue making YouTube videos but about all this hardware since you're always building computers. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. YouTube's kind of weird. The people on there are kind of like strange, and I don't want to associate myself with YouTube like that. And plus, like all the armchair engineers. So I was just like, nah, I'm good. But then he kept pushing me, and I finally did it. And the channel's kind of evolved over time to focus more like on the Homelab community. And I'm just wanted to like show people basically like, here's some old hardware, here's how we can reuse it for new things, and you know, basically just repurposing old hardware, even how to use new stuff if you're like kind of into that. And so the channel's always been Homelab focused, and kind of like an outlet for me as well, because this is also a hobby. It's like the Homelab is a hobby, and I use it as an outlet for learning. And then obviously anything I learn I want to show everybody here. And then of course for like guides or material that require a little bit more depth, I also write a blog post about whatever the YouTube video is. And I think that's helpful because a lot of people are like, hey, I like YouTube, but sometimes I just want to read, you know, the guide just so I can get through it much more quickly. So I do both.
Yeah, you know, I've read a few of your guides and they're very useful. It's nice to have it, you know, written down as well as watching a video. You know, much easier to find easier to find the bit you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on both sides of the fence before. It's like you're watching a video, and some people, it's hard when you make videos because some people are on the very low end of the technical skills, and you have other people that are very high, and they don't want to know anything about what the video's about. They just want to know how to do it because they understand everything. And it's so hard to like make content for both sides because you get some people that are absolutely frustrated with the videos, and some people are like, oh my god, these videos are amazing, there's so much detail. And you just never know what you're going to get with some people. So I was like, I'm gonna write too. I'm going to have to write.
No, you can't please all the people all the time.
No.
It's hard to please some of the people some of the time. So.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to make you install Chrome on your computer for our Riverside software. You know, I was a bit sad to have to do that as well. My daily driver is a Linux machine. I like to run Pop! OS on my laptop.
Nice.
Yeah, I try and keep away from things like Chrome. So, you know, what browser do you normally use?
Firefox. I've been using Firefox for decades now. I have no plan to use anything else. And it's funny because not only not using Firefox, but I also just installed Windows on this laptop here. Like clean install, brand new drivers, everything, just to try and like mitigate any issues. It's like I want to use Linux or Mac OS actually, but I don't want to run any problems, and fixing them on Windows would be a lot quicker and easier. So I literally just use Windows for this, which I would normally never do.
Oh man, I'm sorry. So to do this podcast, you've had to not only install Chrome, but Windows too. I really do feel your pain. Anyway, talking about laptops, what type of laptop are you using? I think I saw you had a MacBook Pro in a recent video, yeah?
Yeah, so there's actually a Mac behind me just sitting on the desk. It's one of the M1 Pro models. But the particular laptop I'm using right now is a Dell Latitude 7 something, I don't know.
So is that the one you had the problem with the black screen a while back?
That is, yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading on your website about a year ago, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So Red Hat apparently doesn't support NVIDIA Optimus or maybe 12th generation Intel chips. So there's like this weird communication error between the CPU or the iGPU and the DGPU. And they can't, I don't know how to explain it because I'm not an expert at this stuff. I just know the symptoms and how to fix it. So I guess there's a communication error, and neither one will do a display out because they're kind of fighting of which one should do the display out. I think that's my understanding. And obviously this has to do with graphic switching. So whatever the case, if you install the NVIDIA drivers, it just gives you a black screen. So there's some things you have to do in Red Hat to enable the CPU to work properly with the kernel or something like that. I don't know. I really don't understand. I just make it work.
Yeah, I remember I had like a weird problem on my old Razer laptop. Running Pop! OS, if I shut the lid, I don't think it would sleep. Or was it? No, it would sleep, but then it wouldn't wake up when I opened the lid. Really weird.
It's weird. Like, little problems pop up like that all the time. And in fact, with Pop! OS the other day, I actually made a video about gaming on Dead Space with Pop! OS. And my performance was really bad. I even live streamed with the performance being really poor. And I was sitting here scratching my head, like, I should be getting better than 50 frames per second. And what was interesting about it is the second monitor I have is basically capped at 60 hertz because it's really old. And I was like, I bet that if I unplug the second monitor, my frames will be better. So I unplugged the second monitor, rebooted Pop OS, and then suddenly I was getting 120 FPS. And I don't know how to explain why that would be. Doesn't make sense.
Weird. So I guess the OS must have kind of seen the monitor, with only like a 60 hertz refresh and just locked the game at, 60 frames a second.
And that monitor obviously is like not as good as my monitor that you see right here behind me. And so it just must have been some weird like synchronization or communication between the GPU and monitor.
So just looping back to browsers a minute, are you using any good plugins in Firefox? Do you run Bitwarden? You've got a Bitwarden plugin, anything like that?
I don't. The only plugin extension I use is not AdBlock plus uBlock Origin, and that's it.
Oh yeah, that's a really great ad blocker, that one. Have you ever run Opera browser? I've been thinking of trying it myself. I was reading about it. Apparently, it's actually got built-in ad blocker, built-in VPN, a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously heard of Opera, and I've never used it before. And honestly, like, I don't want to. Firefox just does everything I want it to do, and all the plugins are available if I want to do anything like that. And now, them being built in, obviously, is nice because it's less work that you have to do as the user, but Firefox is just so good.
It is. I really love Firefox. Are you a Thunderbird user as well?
Actually, no. I have used Thunderbird, obviously, because sometimes it comes installed with the operating system.
No, Thunderbird email's never been as popular as their browser. Anyway, changing gears a minute. So if it's all right with you, I'd love to have your input on some audio and written questions we've got from the viewers.
Let's do it.
A question from Orlando500 on the Unraid forums. He says, when getting a dedicated graphics card for a Windows VM, what model of card, like 1050 to 2090, etc., is enough to get peak performance? Let me rephrase that, is enough to get okay performance. So, that's a bit subjective, really, don't you think?
That was what was going through my head. I was like, well, it depends on your expectations.
Exactly. So, obviously, if you want to run AAA games, okay performance is very different than if you want to just go on Facebook and watch YouTube videos.
Or even play games like Minecraft, with the exception of not Minecraft RTX, but just regular old Minecraft. Like, you don't really know what you're going to get.
My kind of take, I'd say nowadays is like, if you want to just play as a casual gamer, maybe kind of like, a 2060 as a minimum. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
I suppose like a 1080 high-end 10 series, might be okay. But, like I say, it's very difficult to know what okay performance is.
It is. And also you have the problem too of like, what resolution do you plan on playing at? What, kind of refresh rate or frame rate are you expecting? There's a lot of dependencies there. So it would be hard to say, but if I would say a 2060 or, hell, even a 3060 if you can afford it, especially now with the prices dropping, those would be perfect for most people.
You're rocking a 4090, aren't you, Stefano?
Yeah, I am actually.
Wow. yeah.
I'm kind of the exception to the rule here. I wouldn't normally buy that, but we have like obviously extra income thanks to YouTube and the website and all that stuff. So, but I would have bought a 4080.
Yeah. I've got a 3080 in mine, which is pretty good. But I paid a lot more than I should have done at the time because it was during the shortage. I paid about $100 more. But,
that's not too bad.
It was right at the beginning of the shortage, so.
Yeah, I skipped the 3000 series. Like I had a Titan X, the original Pascal, so it was getting pretty old and playing on 4K was not so good. And it just happened to finally, it didn't die. I can't even remember the name of the problem, but basically artifacting. I had a lot of artifacting and it was just time to replace it. And the 4000 series was on the verge of coming out. So I was like, guess I'm getting one of those.
Nice. Yeah, Orlando 500 also asks, any motherboard recommendation for servers? I'm running out of slots with the current setup as I have LSI controllers and a card already for Plex transcoding. So there's a motherboard that I really like. It's the ASRock Romed8-2T BCM ATX motherboard server. I'm going to try and bring it up in a window and show you that now, if I can work out how to do that.
Yeah, and to that credit too, I love ASRock motherboards because they also have onboard graphics. So even if you don't have a dedicated graphics card for Unraid, you can still see the operating itself because it has that onboard GPU, essentially like a as media graphics processor.
Can you see that there, Stefano?
I can actually.
Yeah, so, I think, if you want a lot of PCIe slots, that's a great board. It's got 7 PCI 4.0 times 16 slots. It's got 2, how do you pronounce it, OQ-Link ports, which you can connect high-speed storage to. And a real nice thing is the dual 10 gig networking on it. So, maybe that's something to think about. It's one that I've been kind of tempted to buy, but it's, it's quite a lot of money. It's about $800. I'd like to build an Epic system, but if you want a lot of PCIe slots, that board's got it.
And it has remote IPMI.
Yep. At the moment, I'm running in my server a 5950X on X570 platform on an MSI GODLIKE motherboard that has 4 PCIe slots. I wanted to upgrade to the new AMD CPUs, but I can't find a motherboard with more than 3 PCIe slots, and that's just not enough for me. So that's why I've been looking at that motherboard just before Orlando 500 happened to ask that question. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. I'm probably not going to pronounce this properly. Mundodl on the Unraid forums says, Hola, thanks for the great software. My question is there any timeline on multiple array pools for the OS?
2 weeks TM.
Sorry, say again?
2 weeks TM.
Don't listen to him, guys. He's a joker.
No, I know this guy on the inside. He told me.
And for Stefano, what are some of your favorite containers and things to do with your Unraid server? So first, I'm going to answer the question about multiple arrays on the Unraid server. I've been told that added functionality for this use case should be coming along in Unraid 6.13. So 6.12 is the next one. So hopefully we'll see it in the kind of iteration of Unraid afterwards. So, if you could have, 2 arrays in your Unraid server, can you think of anything that would be useful for? Yeah, I'm thinking of maybe, with the two arrays, we could have, one with, say, 1 parity disk with like large size drives that could be used for maybe storing your media. So, things that are not quite so important as other data might be. And then for more important data, which you probably have less of compared to media, you could have a smaller array in disk size and have 2 parity disks. Maybe that would be something, because the nice thing about the Unraid array is you can always add disks to it and expand it as you go. But with a pool in ButterFS or ZFS, it's much harder to expand the existing pool with more disks. That's one I can think of. I don't know if you can think of anything else at all.
I've kind of played with the idea of what I would do if I had that option available to me, and honestly, nothing really came to mind for me personally, except for maybe just disassociating my YouTube videos that I back up to my Unraid server from my personal media. But I don't know what I stand to gain from that, because I don't want to buy extra drives. It's better, just for me anyway, to have one large pool. Yeah,
I think for a lot of people, one large pool, is definitely enough, and but it'd definitely be an interesting feature to have.
Yeah, and it just makes Unraid even more flexible.
So next question: what are some of your favorite containers and things to do with your Unraid server?
Okay, yeah. So my real actual Unraid server that I use all the time, not for testing, not for YouTube, doesn't actually run very many containers at all. I have Pi-hole, of course, because the adpocalypse is just absolutely insane. And when you start having kids and they're being exposed to just constant advertisements through games, YouTube and all that stuff, having a network-wide ad blocker becomes critical. And I haven't switched to AdSense. I don't know the new
Adware, is it?
Adware, maybe something like that.
AdGuard, yeah.
AdGuard, yeah. Haven't switched to AdGuard. I probably will, but everything's kind of working right now, and I don't like touching things once they're working. But obviously, Pi-hole is absolutely critical. Probably my most favorite container to date. And then, of course, I run multiple game servers, and then itch777 makes pretty much every game container that you could possibly want. So I use a lot of his. And then I always have a Firefox container because, you need Firefox within Firefox. A little nesting there, not a big deal. But that's mostly used for browsing, I guess, more privately, like outside of my browsers. So that's actually connected through like a Deluge VPN proxy. And then so I can browse.
I heard sorry to interrupt, Stefano, but I heard using that could be like a great idea. There was a YouTuber in the UK called Paul Hibbert. He does kind of videos on kind of home automation and that kind of thing. And apparently he got an email through saying, do you want to kind of review this game? We think you'll really like it. And here's the kind of Google Drive of the game and some kind of PDF. And it wasn't a PDF. And he looked at it. It wasn't a PDF apparently, but it had the PDF kind of like, kind of icon. So it looked a bit like he scanned it with, Windows, malware stuff, whatever it's called, the built-in one. And
Windows Defender, yeah.
That's it, Windows Defender. And he ran it. It didn't do anything. He thought, oh, it's just nothing. And apparently 2 hours later, his YouTube account, even though he had two-factor authentication, had been kind of like hijacked by someone, changed to the name of Tesla. And,
Weird.
He was like, obviously, really distraught about it. It's his full-time job. And, it's basically like someone coming and taking your job away. So he managed to get his account back. But, how it worked apparently is the browser, when he ran that file, all of the browser windows that were already opened, it basically took the open cookies, sent it to the hacker, and then they were already logged into his YouTube. They changed his two-factor authentication and locked him out of his account.
That's so smart. It kills me how smart some of these hackers could be. It's like, if only we could just use that for good, and like maybe we could progress as a society versus trying to like earn some extra money or whatever their intentions are. They're so smart.
If you think of the amount of work that takes to figure something out like that,
yeah. It's a lot of effort.
You'd be super rich anyway if you can do that,
Companies
say, yeah, come and work for me. They'll be saying there are loads of companies, if you can like figure out that sort of thing. But
that'd be like the perfect thing that you can do during a job application. You send them a PDF that's a resume, but it's actually got that payload. And then you find everything out about your interviewer. And then you're like, oh, yeah, this is how good of a hacker I am. Mr. Bob Jones, who lives at XYZ. I changed your YouTube channel to whatever. And I was like, whoa, how do you not hire someone like that?
But you'd think Google would kind of like make it so that wasn't possible to do. Like when you change two-factor, they should make it that you have to enter a two-factor again. Then they shouldn't. I can't believe really that they have that kind of vulnerability where, even that the IP address has changed from where those open browsers are. It should want you to log in again.
Yeah, for me, every time I try to log in from any browser, especially on a different operating system, Google's like, hey, here's your token. Please enter in your token or whatever. I'm like, God, I'm on the same IP address. Just let me log in. And it's like, no.
I set Firefox to clear all of its cookies when
you close it.
Closes, which is like, a bit of a pain. And the other day, I didn't know this was a thing. You can choose certain sites where that's an exception.
So I just learned about that.
So eBay, Amazon, and my kind of email accounts, I can say, okay, remember those cookies. So I was very happy about that the other day.
Yeah, I learned about that in my Firefox container, and so it sounds silly to have a container that runs Firefox, but if you're on your host machine, you can still stay on your same IP address, still stay logged into all your accounts, and then within another browser or the same browser, you can just open a new tab that has a Firefox container or whatever you want to call it running that can be on a VPN on a totally different, IP or whatever. And you can kind of test things too, like for my website, will this work in XYZ language? Or I can visit this link knowing that, hey, anything that happens will be containerized to that Firefox container. So it's like there's a lot of benefits to something simple like that, and that's why I have it.
Like you say, you've got it running through a VPN because it's going through Deluge VPN. So you can have it running all of the time. You can have it as a tab in your other a bookmark in your other main browser.
Exactly.
And say you wanted to buy some crypto or kind of access a crypto account, you could have just a separate container for that, which you can access in your normal browser. So I think that would be kind of quite a safe thing to do.
Yeah, it feels safer.
If you're worried about that, yeah, I think that's definitely a cool thing.
Yeah, and for other containers, I can't even think of what else I run besides those. I'm sure I have one that is important. Oh, Plex. I have Plex. I had to switch to Jellyfin.
No, I'm using Jellyfin and MB, but mainly MB at the moment because my sister down in Cornwall, which is probably 200 miles away, she doesn't know how to install Jellyfin on her Roku, so I'm kind of running that until I go down there and change that for her.
Nice. I honestly haven't used Plex very much because with my cell phone provider, they've bundled in the Disney Plus package. We pay for Netflix, and then we have Apple Plus as well. So we pretty much have everything. And I just honestly haven't even been using that very much lately. So, but those are all the containers I can think of.
So mainly it's just a browser, Plex, and ad blocking.
Yeah.
To talk about ad block, I've got a joke for you actually. Why did the Windows user install an ad blocker?
I think I saw this joke recently, and it's not coming to mind. Why would they not want Windows? I don't know.
Because they don't want Microsoft to see the adverts they're clicking on.
Actually, you did tell me this.
Did I told you that one already?
Yeah, we talked about it on the phone. And I was like, I just heard this. Why can't I remember it?
Oh dear, never mind. You should pretend you hadn't heard it,
I never heard it before.
No, nor have I. In fact, you told it me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, next question is from BurnStation19 on the forums. Native multiple UPS support in Unraid, does it exist? And if so, how? And if not, why isn't it a standard feature yet, in your opinion? So, no, multiple UPSs is not available in Unraid. And why is it not a standard feature? Well, basically because I don't think many people would use it. But BurnStation19 is giving us more content. He says, why? The purpose of a UPS... Sorry, he says, why? Because I have two SMT 1500 UPS units, both modified with deep cycle 4-hour runtime, feeding uninterruptible switch. I want the ability to see status and have custom parameters for each UPS native in Unraid. My use case is easy to justify as my main UPS runs to power the rest of my LAN, so when power goes out, I can adjust things accordingly for the longest run times. I can understand that use case, but normally a use case for a UPS isn't to kind of keep everything running. It's really just to kind of switch down the server gracefully, so it doesn't just kind of turn off badly. For me, if my power goes out here, it's either going to be maybe for kind of like a minute, maybe a minute and a half. If it's longer than that, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 hours. So having the UPS keep the server running for ages, it isn't really a kind of thing that is useful for a lot of people, in my opinion.
But it is really cool when all of your servers are still operating and the whole rest of the neighborhood is offline.
Yeah, that is.
Been there, done that.
But if you can't use your servers because your monitors are not on and stuff, I don't know.
They got batteries on everything, baby.
Yeah. I actually got solar fitted to my house a while ago, and I've got the whole house running off lithium batteries, so
that's awesome.
That's kind of like a giant UPS, kind of.
Yeah, basically a whole house UPS.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Don't undersell it.
Anyway, BurnStation19, if that's the sort of thing you wanted to set up, maybe get a Raspberry Pi to to control your UPSs, and you could run NUT or ACP UPSD, and you could probably, get something together to do what you want on that. Okay, on to the next question, which is from Scott in Nevada. So I'm going to play this question as it was sent to us on SpeakPipe.
Hi, my name is Scott. I'm from Nevada in the United States. I just had a question for Tom. So my question is whether you guys have any plans to bring Unraid to ARM. I think there's a lot of people who would love to play with that. Of course, Raspberry Pi and all the single board computers that are coming out with ARM processors, but also much more powerful server-based hardware with ARM. And I just think it would be a great addition to round out the capabilities of Unraid. So thanks for taking my question.
Well, thanks very much, Scott, for the question. And I have got an answer back from Tom about this. Tom says it's theoretically possible to do, but very hard to gauge how much work will be involved. My guess is that it's very significant, i.e. multi-month development and effort, and one where we'd need to hire another developer to tackle. We've not begun an investigation to determine the scope of the technical changes, but have begun an initial market analysis to determine popularity and if there's going to be enough users. So, never say never, but, it doesn't look like it's something that's going to be soon. What are your thoughts about running an ARM server with Unraid?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing I would try to do is see if I get it running on my MacBook. Not for any reason in particular, but just to see if I can do it. And I know that's where that question is leading to.
Yeah, I actually had an old MacBook myself years ago, and I did run Unraid on that, and then run a Mac VM on that just for giggles. It's another silly project, really, like me wanting to run Unraid on the Steamdeck. But yeah, so
Yeah, literally, that's the first use case I could think of, just for fun, not really because I would use like an ARM-based server or anything. But obviously, there's tons of potential for it, and not in a Mac.
It would be super cool to use ARM, but probably there wouldn't be a lot of people using it.
Don't know.
I'd love to try and run it on a Raspberry Pi. I did actually run Unraid on a Raspberry Pi emulating ARM in QEMU. But
nice.
It was like slower than my grandmother trying to kind of run a marathon, So it just didn't really work well. But
speaking of Mac, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, finish.
No, I finished.
Oh, okay. So a long time ago, before I even started making Unraid videos, I actually had watched one of your videos where you were trying to install Mac as a virtual machine within Unraid. And I followed that video, and I remember having a problem. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I had a problem because I was doing it step by step, and I was like, why isn't this working? Like, he literally says to use QEMU whatever, and then do X, Y, Z, and it should work. And I'm sitting here wondering why it's not working. So I don't remember exactly what I did, but I must have changed like one BIOS setting instead. And then it started working. And then I was like, man, this is so frustrating. Like when you find the perfect video and it doesn't work. And I was like, I'm going to make my own videos. And anytime I run into these issues, I'm going to make sure to like record it. That way people can see my struggle with it and they will actually know like, hey, this isn't as easy as it looks. And that way, like if maybe there's something that I have a problem with, it'll help them fix some problem they may have that is different from the video that I made or something like that. But it's funny because you're kind of the whole reason I started making Unraid videos, because I was like just absolutely frustrated trying to get Mac OS installed on this virtual machine.
There you are, everyone. You've got me to thank that, we've got all Stefano's videos,
Got a couple.
the Unraid ones anyway.
Definitely.
So. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it can be really difficult setting up Mac OS on an Unraid server as a VM. Just sometimes, different hardware. For some reason, it just doesn't.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to our next question, which is from Jared. Again, this is like a voice message, so let's listen to this one.
Hey everyone, last year we saw Intel launch the ARC GPU platform. Its low cost and high performance for transcoding is really exciting for those of us with media servers. My question is there a time frame for when beta builds of Unraid will function with ARC GPUs?
2 weeks.
2 weeks again?
2 weeks. Trademarked.
Don't listen to him. Yeah, so ARC GPUs, they basically will be supported when the kernel supports it. The stable version of Unraid now, what are we on, Stefano? It's 6.10.5, I believe.
That sounds right.
That has kernel 5.19, which has no support for the Intel Arc GPUs. But I believe from kernel 6.0, it was experimentally in that kernel. And in 6.1, it's a little bit better. And, you know, straight from Unraid, they say that they're currently testing Arc GPU support, and it should be in 6.12. So we should be seeing, hopefully, some public betas and RCs, you know, shortly. So, yeah, you know, you should be able to use your Intel GPUs in Unraid very soon. And I know, kind of from reading through the forums, you know, some people have, I think they've upgraded the kernel themselves, and they do have the videos transcoding with the Jellyfin container. So, you know, there are some people who are actually using that already. But, you know, if you just wait until the next beta version of Unraid, that has kernel 6.1 in it, so you should be able to do something with it then.
And the benefit of waiting, too, is there's rumors that Intel's supposed to be dropping the price of their graphics cards, so you may even get a deal out of it in the future.
Do you know anyone who's used an Intel GPU? Have you tried it yourself, or?
Only other YouTubers. I want to get one because I think it'd be great for Plex transcoding, or well, any kind of transcoding. But I honestly, like, it would be overkill for me.
Yeah, me too. You know, I've got like I said, the 3080, and I've got an RTX. I can't remember which one it is, and I think Vanessa would probably kill me if I kind of like got another GPU. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
As long as the YouTube channel pays for it, should be fine, right?
Yeah. Well, you tell her that.
Oh, no problem. Vanessa, it's for YouTube. It's content.
And it's Valentine's Day. You know, it's Valentine's Day on when is it? Tuesday. So, you know, if a GPU came through the post that day, I don't know. I might not be making YouTube videos anymore.
Intel sent me this. For Valentine's Day, they love me.
Anyway, I'm talking about, you know, the new version of Unraid, the 6.12. That is going to have ZFS support in it, which I know a lot of people are very excited about. Is that something you're excited about, Stefano?
No, I don't have a particular interest, but I was just remembering seeing question after question after question on the posts, on Reddit, on YouTube, like, when's ZFS coming? When's ZFS? And I was like, why is ZFS in so much high demand? I don't understand.
Well, I love ZFS. I think it's really great. There's so many advantages to the file system, in my opinion. So I think this is a good segue for me to talk to you and the audience about my favourite features of ZFS. You know, for example, data integrity. When it writes data to the disks, it basically writes a checksum as well. For example, if you had a movie file, the data's striped in blocks across the disks. So if one of those blocks became corrupted, on a file system that didn't have checksumming, it could cause artifacting when you play that file back. But ZFS can actually heal this error, and it knows when the block's bad from the checksumming, and it can actually heal and correct that file as it reads it from the redundancy in the pool. Now, I believe ButterFS can do that. That's another file system that has checksumming, but I think it uses a different algorithm to achieve the same, but I'm not sure, to be honest. Now, another feature that's really awesome is compression, but I guess I should probably say what datasets are first. Now, datasets, they're similar to folders, and they're in ZFS. That obviously they contain data, but these kind of like folders or datasets, they have special properties. They can be encrypted, they can be compressed, and obviously datasets, they can have inside them regular files and folders, but they can also have like a sub or child set of a dataset inside them as well. And going back to compression, we can set the compression level for various different datasets. By default, I think it's LZ4, and there are different types of compression. There's LZ4, ZLE, gzip, and another I've forgotten. Oh yes, LZJB. So basically these different compression ratios, the higher the compression generally is the lower the performance because it needs more CPU horsepower. But you could have, say, an archive folder of data you don't actually access very much. You want to just store it away. You'd use gzip on that, which will compress it a lot, and you'll save a lot of space. But for regular data, you'd use probably the default, which is LZ4. It has fairly good compression and it's pretty good performance. Now, a lot of people worry thinking, well, if it's compressed, it's going to slow the system down. But a lot of the time, it's actually quite the opposite. Because, with spinning hard drives, the I/O is quite slow, especially compared to SSDs. So it's often quicker to actually take off the compressed data off these drives and then uncompress it on the fly. And that will actually be quicker than if the data wasn't compressed and just read off normally. So it's like a really cool feature. And the fact that you can replicate data sets to somewhere else. So you did a really cool video a while ago about Lucky Backup?
Lucky Backup, yep.
Yeah, which uses rsync to synchronize between two PCs. Rsync's awesome. I love rsync. I use it a lot myself. But with rsync, say you had some VMs. You had some V disks, like say, half a terabyte V disk, you had 3 of them, and I wanted to back up my VMs across to you in the United States. Well, yeah, I could do that with rsync, and I could send it across. It'll take a long time to upload that 1.5 terabytes. And then if I go onto one of the VMs and I download one MP3 into the V disk, when I run rsync again, it's going to want to transmit the whole of that one file.
The V-disk, yeah.
The good thing about ZFS is because it's the disk controller and the file system, it's aware of the changes on the block side. So my backup to you after I've done the initial backup, it would only take a couple of seconds because it will only transmit the changed blocks in the file system. So the backup would probably take 30 seconds. With rsync, it might take an hour or 2.
That's actually a great feature.
It's super cool for things like that. I really love it for things like that.
Yeah, I built a system for somebody who wanted to have like a remote backup or an Unraid remote backup, and they were doing the transfer from their host to the remote client, and it took literal days with rsync, but not so much because of rsync itself and the large data, but mostly because the internet connections and stuff. But, minimizing little things like that make a huge difference. Did you know anything about bit rot with ZFS? Because I've seen a lot of talk about bit rot lately on the internet.
So, bit rot, ZFS can protect against that. Like I was sort of saying earlier, it's checksums with the data.
Right.
It can self-heal the data if it detects there's something wrong with the data. The checksum doesn't add up across the blocks. It goes, that block's not quite what it should be, and then it can recalculate what that block should be.
Do you have like how that would work with Btrfs? Is there like that same kind of mechanism, or?
I believe, to be honest, I'm not an expert in Btrfs, but I believe Btrfs does have checksums built into it for self-healing. Obviously to kind of do it properly with any of these, you need more than one disk. Otherwise, you get the checksums and it can tell you there's data wrong, but it can't fix it.
Yeah.
Because it can only fix it from the redundancy. But anyway, ZFS, it's really exciting. It's coming to Unraid.
A lot of people are going to be very excited. I can't wait to see all the forum posts. Be like, finally!
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, just totally changing the subject now. Looking at your channel, you're having a bit of a problem with heat in your server closet at the moment.
Yeah, it's been especially bad lately because I've just added so much equipment in there. I've been working with brands, so I've literally been adding way more than that closet wasn't ever intended to hold. And it's starting to become an issue. And I think I've kind of solved it for now, but I'm kind of sitting here scratching my head. Okay, this is just another Band-Aid fix, and then, next year or whenever, I'm going to have to be like Craft Computing and install a dedicated AC unit in there. It's going to be too loud. And it's like, man, I really wish I had the funds to have like a dedicated studio outside where I could have solar panels, like power the entire thing. And it would be AC cooled and out of the house and everything would be quiet, but it's so expensive.
So, what have you got running in your server closet? How many servers are in there?
I only have 3 servers, which is a lot for most people. They're like, why do you need so many servers? But I have a test Unraid server that doesn't actually run 24/7, but I've been letting it run a lot more often because you never know when you're going to be like, oh, let me test this container out, see how to install it, and then make a video about it. Because I don't know about you, but like my creativity is not really scheduled. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to do this today. So I get lazy about turning it off. And I actually have a second Unraid server that's my backup server. And I let that one run non-essentially as well. It doesn't need to be on 24/7 because I only do backups every Friday. And then, of course, my main Unraid server that powers the entire network and the entire house. And they're wildly different. Like one has a 5800X in it because that one will host games, which is also what I do with my test Unraid servers, host game servers. And then one has like a Intel 4 or 4110 gold or silver CPU in there. And then the other one has a 3700X as well. So there's a lot of heat being generated.
So, do you run any VMs at all? Did I make you give up with that, from the Mac one? Because
Yeah, the Mac one was my last VM I've ever installed. No, I'm kidding. It was so horrible. No, I'm done with the VM game. Containers can pretty much do everything, and there's one game that needs to figure out how to get off Windows and just allow us to run their game serving software in like Linux so we can containerize it, and that's Space Engineers. And I know Keen or whatever their developer is doesn't watch this, probably, but I swear to God, if you do, please give us a Linux server so we can host it in a container, because I don't want to install Windows or Windows VM just to run your software to host the server.
Yeah, I wonder if that could run in Wine in a container, kind of in Wine somehow.
It might.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't have the skills for that, though. That's beyond me.
So, sort of server-wise, I've got 3 servers as well. I've got my main one that's kind of behind me in that arcade cabinet there. I'm hoping that's my server closet.
For now.
For now. I'm hoping to, at the moment it's just in there in its kind of case, but I'm hoping to strip all the parts out and kind of build it into that old arcade cabinet there. I've got a backup server like you for, backing up data. Again, that isn't on all the time, but I have a script that actually turns it on when it needs to do a backup and sort of switches it off afterwards, to try and save electricity. And I've got a test server for testing out things, just like you. If there's a new container, I think chuck it on the test server and have a look at that. So, yeah,
it's funny because it sounds ridiculous, but I don't know how many times I've broken my Unraid server because of just some test, right? Or with NVIDIA graphics pass-through or something. Like, I don't want to say it's easy to break Unraid, but I've done it so many times and it's just totally disrupted the entire ecosystem here. And so I was like, I have to get a second server specifically for testing. And it's been amazing. So
yeah, it's definitely worth having a second server for testing. For me, if I restart the server, I'll have to turn it off for a while. And, the kids or the missus is watching something on MB, it doesn't go down very well, Yeah. Just like if I have to reboot the router, I run pfSense on there, and I'm running my ad blocker through PG Blocker. I'm not sure if you've ever used pfSense much, but it's a great open source firewall.
Yeah, everyone's always pushing me to use it because they're like, oh, you have Ubiquity, but pfSense. I'm like, but it's just working and I don't want to switch.
Just try it out, downstream or something, just to see what it's like. You'll love it. It's really great,
Free sample.
But yeah, it's nice to kind of run the ad blocking actually on the, on the actual router, right on the edge of the network.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And hopefully one day I can get there,
but I think mine's got a bit too sensitive at the moment. Like anything with kind of like any kind of Google tracking on, when you kind of you know, you go on Google and like you do a search and there's the kind of sponsored ads at the top. Well, Vanessa likes clicking on those sponsored ads because they're at the top and they don't work at the moment. So, like, no Google sponsored ads will work. It's blocking them. So
Yeah, my DNS or my Pi-hole is so aggressive that the actual icons for like playing the next video or pausing or skipping ahead 10 seconds, all of those icons don't load. So when you're watching a YouTube video, you just see these like squares with X's in them because it didn't load the icons. And I'm like, I need to fix that one day.
And that
I'm not going to fix it.
Actually, you know, before recording the podcast today, I was having a bit of trouble with the Riverside software. I thought, I'm going to turn off PG Blocker. I bet you it's something to do with that. And after turning it off, oh, it's working nicely now.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I just, like my gaming computer, Ubiquiti does a great job of blocking something called WebRTC. And I feel like every update they block it. So things like Discord don't work or anything that uses the WebRTC protocol. I don't know if that's a protocol, but whatever. So I'm like constantly like having to unplug my PC from the network and plug it directly into my modem. So that way there's like no blocking, nothing like that. And I can play games perfectly fine. I'm just like, ugh, why do you do this?
You know, maybe, you know, set up a second network, you know, for you without the blocking on. And
yeah, I mean, it's funny, like I have all of that capability. I'm just like so lazy. I mean, I do obviously have VLANs, like my cameras are on their own VLAN. The Internet of Things is on their own VLAN. And then we all share like a common VLAN between devices. But I should probably look into something a little bit more advanced. We'll see.
So, you know, what have you got planned coming up on your channel on SPXLabs? Any fun future projects that you'd like people to know about?
Yeah, so we actually haven't finished the whole server closet ventilation problem. I'm in process right now of collecting temperature data, so that way, like, you know, if the test only runs for a day and then it looked good on that day, well, maybe the temperature outside was 39 degrees outside, and that's why the temperatures were so good. And so I need to have a long enough time frame for that, so that video is going to take a while to come out, but eventually we'll get there. And aside from that, the next video, I plan on actually running a totally separate network for SPXLabs, so that way it will be on its own network, and I no longer have, like, anytime I want to tinker with the network, I don't have to bother everyone else in the house. And so I have a server rack that's been sitting in my garage for, maybe like almost a year now, 6 months, I don't know. It's been a long time. But I have this like logistics problem where I have all these boxes of hardware that I don't really use because, you know, I just like, oh, here's this thing, and then I put it back. And so I got to figure out where to put that so I can bring the server rack in here and then install a bunch of network equipment in it. And that will probably be a pretty interesting video whenever I get around to it.
Oh,
but
great.
That's it.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing that for sure.
Yeah, people really love that kind of stuff.
So, you know, for people who want to, you know, get hold of you, you know, how can they see your work? You know, where can they find you?
So yeah, obviously the best place is YouTube, SPXLabs. And then of course, I do write about a lot of things I do as well, depending on what it is. So there is also spxlabs.com. And then of course there's Twitter. Used to be on Instagram, but I left Instagram. Probably going to leave Twitter one day, but I can't get the Mastodon folks to accept my account, so I'll never be there. And yeah, I think that's it.
Great. Well, you know, I know it's very early for you, and, you know, you probably want to kind of get some breakfast and a bit more coffee into you. So thank you very, very much for your time today, Stefano. You know, it's been a blast talking to you, and, you know, I wish you all the best and hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks. Thank you so much. But I do have one last thing for you.
Sure.
Did you know that diarrhea is hereditary?
Does it run in your genes by any chance? we both watched The Last of Us, man, and also I love that joke. Why did the Scarecrow get an award?
Because he's great at standing in the field.
He's out
something like that.
Because he was outstanding in his field.
Outstanding. Yeah.
I like that one. That was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Anyway, man. Yeah. You know, thanks very much for that, Stefano. It's been great talking to you.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.